Hello, 你好 welcome back，欢迎回来to Wisdom Wednesday with Johnny Tiger. The date is November 9, 2022. Now, today has been a strange day. My internet has been uh, waxing on, waxing off, Wi-Fi, losing connection. Just one of those really squirrely day where connection is concerned. So I'm going to try to keep this short. And there's a possibility, well, short, relative to other Wisdom Wednesday. When it comes to Wisdom Wednesday, it's never going to be that short. Um, and there is a possibility I won't be able to get this uploaded today, depending on the connection. So it's possible that you guys may see this a couple of days later, depending on when I get the internet all sorted out. But anyway, it's being made and it will be there. So fear not, I'm still here. So today I want to talk about an old Chinese organization or uh, uh, establishment. That is, for the most part, it's not really around anymore. Uh, However, you can say this is an ancient Chinese postal service. They called it Yi Zhan, Eye, and then Zhan, Jun. Now, if you ask most people that don't really know the history, and you ask them what is the Yi Zhan, most of them will have no idea what you're talking about. They might have seen it in reading classic Chinese novels and historical novels where this has been mentioned, but you would actually have to dig quite far into history to figure out exactly what is the Yi Zhan all about. Now, normally, this would be a little bit too obscure for me to even want to talk about on Wisdom Wednesday because it's an ancient system that is no longer around and not too many people know about it. And so, why are we talking about it? What's so interesting? Well, it turned out that Yi Zhan has a connection to several interesting historical events, even tied into how China ended up uh, falling into the hand of an external power. How Chinese people lost the empire to the Manchu people in the transition between the Ming and the Qing dynasty. Aha, now this sounds interesting. How can a postal office system be tied in to the rise and the fall of an entire empire? Now, some people will say, well, maybe getting your mail is very important. Maybe because the postal service was messed up, so the communication weren't getting through, and so the war couldn't be fought very effectively. That would be a very logical way to look at it, but Ah, let's listen to my story, and you will realize that you are really overthinking this too much. But, as usual, I want to leave you with a little bit of a Mandarin, little vocabularies and phrases, so you at least learn something from these episodes, right? So, in Mandarin, if you want to send a letter, you want to go mail a letter, the action to mail a letter is called 寄信 Jeshin, 寄信, which means send letter. Letter is 信, right? 寄, the word 寄 is to deliver, to send, to mail, to pass it on to. So 寄信, uh, postman. In Mandarin, it's called 邮差. Youchai, 邮差. Uh, Yo is a word for general delivered good. So parcels, packages, mails. Chai, chai means, well, very literally means working Joe, slave. Okay, 邮差. Uh, in the old days, people who work for the magistrate, people who were essentially policemen in the old days were called 公差. Uh, Again, with our word chai, when you have the word chai, means this person is like one of the workers that deal with whatever. So you chai is a person who deal with delivered goods. Um, to write a letter in Mandarin, they called 写信, 写信. 信 again, and means letter, mail. 写 SHEA, 写 means to write. 写信. Received. If to say that you received something is 收到. 收到. SHODOW. 收到 means I have received. It's received. Package in Mandarin is 包裹. 包裹. BOWGO. GUO actually. BOWGUO. 包裹 means wrapped package. So when you want to send a package, you would say 寄包裹. Again, 寄 means to send. 包裹 means package. To receive a package, you would say 收包裹. 收 again means receive. Receive package. To respond by mail, to respond to someone's mail, the action is called 回信. 信 again means mail. 回 HUA, 回 means to return, to respond, to reply. Okay, now let's talk about this very ancient Chinese mail system called 驿站. If you go to northern China today, in the Black Dragon River area, you will still find remains of old 驿站 being preserved as historical uh, buildings that you can go and check it out what they used to look like. So what is 驿站? To put it in modern term, 驿站 would be like what you would call a postal exchange, a messenger exchange, meaning that in every big city, every major areas, there would be a 驿站 where couriers would be able to get a room and a meal and get rest up and either change horses or pass the mail on to the next person so they can continue the journey to deliver the information to where it needs to go. Now, not everybody could use this postal service. This postal service was mostly restricted to nobility, rich people, and because it's a very expensive system that was had to cover the entirety of the Chinese Empire. When did this system started? It's about 600 BC. It was started by none other than Qin Shi Huang. Who is Qin Shi Huang, you may say? Well, Qin Shi Huang is the guy, the tyrant. Some people say he's the worst tyrant in Chinese history. Qin Shi Huang was the guy who built the Great Wall. Qin Shi Huang was the guy who united China. Before Qin Shi Huang, China was fractured into like 16 different uh, kingdoms, kind of like how what it looked like in Europe. But Qin Shi Huang was the guy who basically uh, forced everybody to come together and brought everybody in line. Qin Shi Huang was also the guy who committed a lot of atrocities, including destroying any traces of history that came before him by burning all the books and parchments and killing off all the scholars in his time. Qin Shi Huang was a very controversial figure. In many ways, he was one of the most important emperors in Chinese history because, hey, the guy built the Great Wall, the guy united China, and the guy he also excavated all the major canals and river systems in China as well. So he did a lot of good for Chinese people. And but on top of that, or opposed to that, he also did a lot of horrible things because Qin Shi Huang had to do so many incredible things that he didn't have time for argument. He tell you to do it, you go do it. Otherwise, he chop off your head and get the next person to do it. That's how it. That's how it works. Um, but we're not here to debate Qin Shi Huang's pros and cons. Is he a good person, bad person today? But he was the person who invented the Yizhan system. And this came as a result of Qin Shi Huang uniting the entire China. Is it before Qin Shi Huang, like I mentioned, China was fractured into like 16, 20, 20,000 different kingdoms, big kingdoms, small kingdoms. Basically, if, to give you sort of an idea, okay, to give you sort of an idea, how many kingdoms there were. Um, when we read about uh, Confucius traveling uh, to all the different kingdoms where he had to try to pass on his teaching and teach people to be good and all that stuff. Uh, when you read the journey of Confucius, it sounds like he traveled a long way, and don't get me wrong, he did. Back then, he had to walk most of that. But if you look at the map today, all the kingdoms that Confucius traveled back then, all it added up together, all it means is Confucius only walked around the Shandong province in China and the Henan province in China. Okay, so this is how crazy it was, right? All the kingdoms that Confucius had to travel through around uh, and try to uh, spread his teaching, all these kingdoms didn't even amount to two Chinese provinces today. Okay, they were all clustered within two Chinese provinces. That's how many little kingdoms there were. It's like almost every village that had enough money to buy weapons or make weapons could call themselves a kingdom back then. So the delivery system for goods and services and mail was very, very tedious when it was like this because every kingdom had their own road system. You see, back then, cars or carts, like horse wagons or hand carts or stuff like that, they didn't just travel on flat road surface like we have today. Back then, carts could only travel in road that already have tracks dug into them for the wheels to go in. So imagine if you look at how wagons and carts worked back then, they're like trains. They're more like trains than the kind of wagon that you are thinking about that can just run everywhere. No, back then these things were built more like trains. They can only run where the tracks were made for them. And what every these little kingdoms did was every one of them had a different set of track, so only their own carts and wagons could use them. Which means if you want to deliver goods, uh, let's say you have 1,000 pounds of silk to send from the kingdom of Wu to the kingdom of uh, Chow, and that you got to uh, stop halfway, unload everything, put it on the wagons from the Kingdom of Chao so you can travel within the Kingdom of Chao on the tracks for those particular wagons. And then, when Kingdom of Chao want to send 1,000 pounds of salt back to the Kingdom of Wu, again, you got to stop halfway, unload everything, and don't forget you got to worry about bandits and highwaymen robbing you at this point. So you got to have really crazy security and unload everything, put it on the cart that can only travel in the Kingdom of Wu to get it into the Kingdom of Wu. And if you have any kind of good that have to go multiple places, yeah, good luck. You got to load and unload uh, multiple times. It's a lot of work. So when Qin Shi Huang united China, he basically put his foot down and he said, "Look, this is crazy. Okay, we're going to get rid of all these tracks. We're going to build nice flat road that everyone can travel and go everywhere." So he did. He got the entire road system in China unified, and then he decided, okay, just so things can go smoother, we're going to build these postal exchanges in major cities and important areas. So when there's information that need to get delivered to me from the front line of the war, it can come to me very quickly. And when I need to give order to my generals, they can receive the order really quickly. So uh, that gave birth to the Yizhan system, which is a series of imagine mega scale post offices in major cities and areas ready for couriers to come in, and when the courier get here, then he can immediately get a fresh horse and continue on his journey, or he can stay the night and freshen up and then continue his journey tomorrow. Or if it's not the kind of super highly secret information, then he can pass the information or parcel packages onto the next courier, and then he can go home. Why do I say mega scale post office? Because most of the post office you see today, it's just like one small, well, I want to say building, but a lot of times it's not even a building. It's a storefront inside a shopping mall. It's kind of sad how small post offices get nowadays. But these Yizhans, they were not. Like, they were more like fortresses. And they have their own entertainment. They have their own food and trade. They have rooms built for couriers. A lot of rooms built for couriers. Why is that? Because couriers back then, especially royal couriers, were not allowed to converse with other people, uh, sleep with other people, or eat with other people. If you're on military business, if you're on royal business, then you have to always be alone. Otherwise, you run the risk of someone like a spy stealing the information you might be carrying. So this means the 驿站 every 驿站, mind you, not just one, not just two, every one of them have to have the facility to feed, shelter, and cater to couriers when they have to do everything by themselves. You have to be able to provide them with the luxury and comfort in their privacy. Which means if you have, let's say, if you have 5,000 couriers on rotation at all times, then you at least need to have 3,000 private suites for them to eat and sleep and do all that stuff in, so they can have their privacy. So yeah, 驿站 were no joking matter, and the ruler, the leader of each 驿站, while not very highly ranked as far as military titles go or nobility goes, every owner or 驿站 master uh, was immensely powerful and immensely rich. because of the nature of Yizhan. You need to be able to house the horses, you need to be able to feed the horses, you need to be able to house the couriers and feed the couriers, tend to their injuries, tend to their sicknesses, uh, yada yada yada. So there's a massive amount of money being allocated to running the Yizhan from the royal treasury every year, which kind of indirectly led to the downfall of Yizhan. The Yizhan system, like I said, started around 600 BC, 800 BC, around that time, and it went all the way to about 1300, year 1300, 1400, around that time. Uh, we fast forward to the Ming Dynasty around mm, about 700 years ago from now. The Ming Dynasty, the last emperor of the Ming Dynasty, Chongjin, was the one who finally destroyed the Yizhan system after this system had served Chinese people for thousands of years. And what happened there? Well, the story goes that during the last stance of the last few decades of the Ming Dynasty, there was a very highly valued, a very high-ranking royal minister for the emperor. And this minister, uh, he had a mistress. So he and his wife technically live uh, away from the capital city. But whenever he went to the capital city, he would go visit his mistress. Well, one time he told his wife that it was New Year, but he said, "Oh, my dear, I'm sorry, I can't spend New Year at home. I know Chinese New Year, is family, but it's for family, and we should be together. But oh, what can I do? The emperor said I have to go to the capital city, and I have to go see the emperor." And he actually went and spent New Year with his mistress. To his surprise, the morning of Chinese New Year, his wife showed up at his doorstep, at his mistress's doorstep, made a royal scene in front of everybody, and basically shamed him for, how can you be a highly valued minister and you do something so uh, down and low class like this? You discarded your family on New Year Day, and you are here with this yada 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 yada. Okay, the woman made a big scene and embarrassed him in front of the everybody, and the mistress was so embarrassed she killed herself. And of course, the minister was very angry, very sad, and he wanted to find out how in the world did his wife find out about where his mistress lived and where he was going to be so quickly. Don't forget, this was back when there's no telecommunication. Everything had to go through Yizhan, go through courier. So how the heck did his wife find out uh, all this stuff so quickly? And after a bit of investigation, he found out that one of his servants uh, had a cousin who worked for the Yizhan. So when this servant found out that his master was going to be spending time with the mistress on New Year's Day, the servant was really angry at his master, so he got his cousin, who, don't forget, worked for the Yizhan, to send an emergency mail by horseback back to home. That's how his wife were able to find out what he was up to so quickly and was able to come to the capital city to make a scene so promptly. So this minister was very angry with not just the servant, but the entire Yizhan system. Because he was thinking, without Yizhan, without those stupid couriers, then his wife wouldn't have found out, he wouldn't have been embarrassed in front of everybody, and his mistress wouldn't have killed herself. So he went to the Chongjin Emperor, the last emperor of the Ming Dynasty, and he said to the emperor, you know, we are spending a lot of money fighting the Manchu people. We are spending a lot of money fighting the barbarians, all the other wars that's going on. And I suddenly realized how we can uh, cut the cost of we can save some money. And the emperor was really under a lot of pressure at this point because of the war effort, and there's a lot of issues with drought and famine, and people were starving, and the royal treasury had to uh, be stretched really thin. So he said, okay, let me know. I'm all ears. Any way to save some money. And the guy said, you know, these Yi Zhan, right? These Yi Zhan people, these postal workers that all over the place, they live in super big fortresses. They have music and dancing girls every night. A lot of times the couriers are just living there. They're not even doing their job. And yet, the royal treasury have to allocate funds to keep them going every year. If we just shut down all the Yizhan, that will save us billions and billions of gold every year. And unfortunately, the emperor was in such a desperate state to save money. He decided that this was a great idea. Because again, he's the emperor. He didn't really know what was what. Um, He's all he heard was we can save billions and billions of gold. He went, okay, good idea. Let's go for it. Let's shut them down. They're not doing any good anyway. When all the Yizhan got shut down, hundreds of thousands of postal workers, couriers, military couriers, horsemen, people who took care of the horses, people who took care of the food and lodging, lost their job. One of them was named Li. And those of you who know your Chinese history would probably immediately think, wait, is that General Li, the guy who ended up overthrowing the emperor? And you would be right. General Li at the time was just a normal civilian working for one of these postal systems. He was one of the couriers that worked for Yi Zhan. And when everybody lost their job, General Lee had no way to feed their family, had no way to survive. So he said, you know what? Screw this. The emperor caused me to not have a job. I am going to I'm going to talk all the mail couriers into uh, rebellion, starting a rebellion with me. So generally, and hundreds of thousands of very pissed off postal workers banded together, formed their own army, and in the end, overthrew the emperor, forcing the emperor to commit suicide. So yeah, I mean, if there's anything, if there's any moral in this old but true story, is don't do something that's going to cause people to lose their job, because sometimes when someone loses their job and lose their hope, they do really crazy things, even including overthrowing an empire, as in the case of General Li. Okay? He was happy being just a postal worker, but the emperor decided to shut down the entire system, and yeah, the rest was history. I'll tell you guys something else that is very interesting about Yi Zhan, because Yi Zhan is also tightly linked to one of our favorite Chinese heroines of all time. I'm sure most of us know the story of Mulan. Now, did you know that Mulan actually served in the military for 16 years? 16 years! Okay, think about it for a second. 16 years. This chick. Okay, I would say like, okay, when she first joined the military, she might be 13 or 14. So it's conceivable that she might be able to disguise herself as a boy. 16 years, okay? 10 years later, she would be 24. 24, she still sounds like a chick. There's no way. There's no way how Mulan would be able to. be in the military and not be discovered. That she, especially if she had to stay in the same tent with hundreds of other soldiers, day and night, bathing together, eating together, sleeping together. Just no way. Okay, so how did this work? Historians have already proven that yes, Mulan did exist, and yes, she was in the military for 16 years, and yes, she didn't get discovered until the very end. So how did this work? Most historians right now are leaning toward, well, the only way this could work was Mulan actually did not see combat. Mulan was a very special kind of soldier. She was not your everyday foot soldier or cavalry soldier. Mulan actually worked 16 years as an army courier who worked directly with the Yizhan. This was the only way that she would be able to go 16 years without being discovered, that she was not a man. Remember earlier I said that the Yizhan system, especially the military couriers and royal couriers, they have to be housed on their own. They couldn't sleep with anybody else. They have to have their own room. They have to eat alone. They have to uh, travel alone because of the highly important military secret, military orders and orders from the emperors they were carrying back and forth. This means for 16 years, Mulan would be mostly traveling on her own, eating on her own, sleeping on her own, probably staying at the local Yizhan, waiting for the newest order, whether to take this to the emperor or to go get an order from the emperor to bring it back. So she had very little contact with anyone else other than her commanding officer and the people at the capital city who she passed orders on to. This was the only way that Mulan would be able to do what she did. So this ancient Chinese post office system contributed in allowing us to have one of our favorite ever female folk heroes in Chinese history. Thank you for checking out today's Wisdom Wednesday. We'll be back again tomorrow for some Toy Thursday. For now, 谢谢 and 再见。